Hey, so about a week ago, Mike Falzone and Ava Gordy made a video called Stop Hating Stuff, and that reminded me of a video idea that I've had for about 2 years now, but haven't exactly known how I wanted to parse it out, and I decided I'm just gonna do it now, as scattered and disorganized as this may be. And I'm not about to presume that I am immune to this. I have hated plenty of stuff in my time in the name of having taste, and it's a habit that I'm trying to change. And it seems to me like the biggest factors of taste are education in and exposure to the craft. When I first started listening to classical music, for instance, the only thing that I really listened to was Beethoven symphonies, and so every new piece that I heard was compared to them. So you can imagine how I reacted when I first gave The Rite of Spring a serious listen. My eyes were open later, though, when I took Stravinsky's music in the context of turn of the 20th century Paris, and now I love it. So you have to have a lot of examples of that genre in order to have the context to properly judge that work. And you have to understand the goals of the style in order to decide whether or not the execution was effective. And this isn't something that's limited to inexperienced people. I once read a very snooty article by an actual critic that said that the movie version of Les Mis wasn't any good because it wasn't like a Verdi opera, and I just didn't understand how someone could make that connection. How can you expect a musical based on a concept album written for popular French audiences in the 1980s to sound anything like a romantic Italian opera from over 100 years earlier? And I do think that part of this stems from a desire to prove yourself, because there's this idea that a sophisticated palate is going to be so much more sensitive than the popular masses. And there is some truth to that, of course, because with any education, you learn what you do and do not like. But you shouldn't take that and extrapolate that if you don't like something, you hate it. And you definitely shouldn't just hate something because it's popular, especially because even mass appeal has its own context. Back in the day when Rossini was writing, a lot of people, most famously Beethoven, looked down on him for writing populist and trite operas, and now I know plenty of people who consider him the standard against which all other operas should be compared, and that's just ridiculous to me. But what this really ends up doing is boxing you in and limiting your options. My dad likes to tell the story of when he was a kid and he tried a cashew for the first time and he hated it, and he went for 20 years thinking that he hated cashews, and then when he tried them again, he loved them, and he found out after having many cashews to make up for lost time that he had just had a bad one as his first cashew. Sometimes the thing that you think you hate is really just a bad example of that thing, and so my initial reaction nowadays if I find that I dislike something is to expose myself to it more, to educate myself on it, to find out what makes it tick, and then if I still don't like it after all of that, at least I gave it a good old college try. So in summary, taste is built by educating yourself on and exposing yourself to your craft and finding stuff that you like. Hating stuff really only limits you and is generally counterproductive to this process. And I'm sure a lot of you have really good experiences and stories along these lines, so if you could leave your thoughts in the comments and get a conversation going, I would really appreciate it. And for those of you who haven't had the chance to see it yet, I was recently a featured guest host on one of my favorite YouTube channels out there, How to Adult, so you can check my video out in the description. Thank you to everybody who subscribed after that. I got a nice wave, and you're all awesome, and I'll see you all next week. What are you doing? Oh, here I am talking about class and my dog is here sniffing his own butt.